All right, today I'm diving into part 2 of our perimenopause signs. So, in part 1, if you guys listened to it, I decided it was way too much to put into one episode. So, this is part 2 continuation. I'm giving you 4 more signs. So, in the first episode, we talked about 6 signs of perimenopause. I'm giving you 4 more signs of perimenopause.
Welcome to She's Healthy, a podcast for ambitious women on their journey to become the healthiest version of themselves. I'm your host, Lori Aikman.
All right, welcome back to the She's Healthy podcast. If this is the first episode you are listening to, my name is Lori Aikman. I am your host. I'm a nurse practitioner and I'm the founder and CEO of Crown Executive Health, where we help busy professional women regain and sustain their energy through comprehensive hormone management. So if you are hearing this, you've been stuck, you have hormonal symptoms, and you've been looking for answers, this is the podcast for you. I do have to give you my medical disclaimer. Although I am a nurse practitioner, this podcast does not constitute medical advice, right? I do recommend that you consult with your practitioner, your provider, your doctor before making any changes. Okay. All right. So we're going to dive into part 2 of this, these episodes. I just decided to break it up because I felt like the first episode was just so meaty. We talked about 6 signs of perimenopause, and we talked about why those signs are showing up. So we actually talked about the hormone changes that are happening in perimenopause that are causing these things to show up. So if you didn't listen to part 1, I do recommend you go back and listen to it. If you didn't listen to part 1, I will clue you in a little bit. Okay, so perimenopause basically is can be the 10 years leading up to when your cycle stops, when you go through menopause. You don't necessarily have signs, not everyone has signs 10 years out. You could have signs a little bit closer, but pretty much like average age of menopause is 51. So if you're in your 40s, you're in your mid 40s and you're starting to have some of these changes, it could be perimenopause. And the big hormonal changes that are happening in perimenopause are, one, your progesterone is decreasing. Okay. So in the last episode, we talked about, your cycle and the cycle changes that are happening and why progesterone is decreasing. But, spoiler alert, your progesterone is decreasing during perimenopause. The other thing, so when progesterone decreases, progesterone and estrogen balance each other out. So progesterone is low and estrogen is still like, okay, here I'm using my hands. I talk with my hands a lot. If estrogen and progesterone start up here, or you can start like this. You can have estrogen excess. You can have high estrogen, but maybe you start balanced. Your baseline is normal estrogen and progesterone levels. Well, then you start going through perimenopause and your progesterone starts decreasing. So what kind of signs are going to show up are going to be high estrogen signs. So low progesterone and high estrogen can look similarly in the symptoms that show up, but we can see what actually is going on through testing. So if you again, this can apply to women that are younger, that are not in perimenopause, but that have low progesterone levels. You can be having these kinds of signs. So then, okay, so we can have this estrogen dominant picture or excess estrogen picture as we go through perimenopause. And then what actually happens is the closer we get to menopause, we can actually get fluctuations in estrogen where estrogen is going to go up and down. Okay. Until then our cycles stop. And then basically we're going to have low progesterone and low estrogen in menopause. And so that's where a lot of those symptoms come from, is both those hormones are going to be very, very low. Okay. So we talked about, again, 6 signs of perimenopause. So we're going to jump in with 4 more. So you can actually start having night sweats in perimenopause. And again, if you've listened to the last episode, what is actually happening is that low progesterone, again, that excess estrogen. I personally have not experienced this yet because of perimenopause. I've experienced this postpartum And what's happening is that, again, that excess estrogen, that drop in progesterone, and then sometimes decrease in estrogen can trigger hot flashes and night sweats. For me, I've had night sweats. And if you've never experienced one before, it's like you're literally waking up, and I've had so many patients tell me this. You're literally it's not that you're just like a little hot. You're literally waking up and your clothes are drenched. Like I've gotten up and had to change my clothes because of my night sweats before. So if you're having that could be a sign that you are in perimenopause, that you're having that drop in progesterone that's causing that sign. So something to look out for. Not fun, but that's okay. It doesn't last forever is what I'm trying to say. I didn't finish my sentence there. I apologize. So another thing that can happen is you can have new or worsening migraines in perimenopause. And again, like on everything else, this has to do with that drop in progesterone. And then that decrease in, it's like the decline in estrogen. So I see this a lot with patients where they have like the menstrual migraine. So like leading up to their period, they'll have a migraine. And why I didn't explain why I did my hand like this is if we go back to what is happening in your normal cycle. I talked about this in the last episode, but just a refresher. So in our normal cycle, so our 28-day cycle over the month, we have our period, we have our menstrual phase of our cycle. Then we enter into the follicular phase. And what's happening is our ovaries are getting an egg ready to release during ovulation. Well, estrogen is going to be the main hormone, the dominant hormone during that follicular phase. Then as we near ovulation, your estrogen is going to come down. And then actually estrogen, I should put a video. I'm going to have to put a video or a graph up somewhere for you so you guys can see this. You can, if you search like menstrual cycle chart or menstrual phase chart, you can actually see this. And there's all these graphs that show the different hormones. So estrogen decreases near ovulation. And then when you do ovulate, estrogen and progesterone will come up, and then they come back down before your period. And when both of these times, so leading up to ovulation, that estrogen is going to be coming down. It spikes and then comes down. And then during that luteal phase, estrogen spikes and then comes back down. So during both those times, leading up to ovulation and then leading up to your period, I see a ton of women have migraines during this time. And what that's coming from is that decrease in estrogen. And it's exaggerated in perimenopause when you don't have a lot of progesterone to, help combat it. So remember, we talked about estrogen and progesterone kind of needing to balance each other out. But if you're not in perimenopause, but you have excess estrogen, you have high estrogen levels, you can also experience this. So if you're 27, right, you're not in perimenopause, but you have low progesterone or excess estrogen, you can also have these cyclical menstrual migraines. And that's what's going on during that time. So you'll actually see, I've seen this on, the supplement distributor that I use. There's tons of supplements out. There's actually supplements of progesterone to help with migraines that you can take with migraines because of that. And that would be more appropriate for a menstrual migraine. If you're getting migraines because of other reasons, that progesterone may not help. But just a free piece of advice out there if you are somebody that has menstrual migraines. Then, okay, so you can also have new or increased PMS or worse PMS. I think of one of my clients in particular. We're actually going to record an episode where we talk through her health journey. I'm excited to bring that to you guys. But this I see a lot. And this client in particular that had this, she was literally, her PMS was so bad, like her family, her husband knew when it was like, he kind of paid attention to her cycle because like her mood was just so labile. I mean, she was ending up in the ER at times for anxiety. And this was completely hormonal. I'm telling you, as we worked together, I want to say we worked together about 6 months. And in that time, even just 3 months in, she had marked improvement in her symptoms, and to where she like hardly has any PMS. She has literally painless, normal mood cycles. And that was coming from having an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone. And when we balanced that out, these PMS symptoms went away. So if you are somebody who, and again, we've got to have that estrogen to help balance out that progesterone. I'm sorry, we have to have the progesterone to help balance out that estrogen. So if you're in your 40s or in your late 30s, you're experiencing new PMS, worsening PMS, that's what could be going on. And I just want to put this out there. If you have horrible PMS, like to the, and these are, you go to, again, conventional medicine doctors and you're getting diagnosed with PMDD, premenstrual dysmorphic disorder, all these, okay, let's put you on birth control. You have all these problems. But like, what if we just looked at what was actually going on with your hormones and saw there was an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone and help brought that into balance? Like your periods, it's not normal to have horrible PMS. It's not normal to have horrible bleeding. Like those are not, that might have been your normal and it might be common for those symptoms to happen, but that's not normal. When your hormones are in balance, you should have, yes, you might have a little bit of cramping. You shouldn't have these massive heavy periods. You shouldn't be, having to stay home because it's so bad, or, your family be walking on eggshells because of the mood swings you have with your cycles. So I just want to put that out there. If you've been settling with symptoms like that as your normal, it is not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. And please keep listening to the podcast episodes and get the help you need, right? Okay. Okay, so we talked about PMS. And then finally, this one I see a ton, is you can have new weight gain, even though you haven't changed a thing. I talk to so many women who are like, I eat the same. I've been going to the same gym. I've been doing everything the same and I'm gaining weight. Or they tell me, I'm going to the gym. I'm really restricting my diet. I upped my workouts. They're working harder with the goal of trying to lose weight and they cannot get the scale to budge. Okay. So what is happening here? So again, my approach is, okay, root cause what's actually going on, what's actually happening with the changes in your body that's causing these symptoms to show up. And so when we are in that perimenopause state, when we have those hormone changes, another thing that happens is that we can become more insulin resistant. You might not have heard this term before, so I'll explain what it is. Forgive me if you already know what this is, but just a refresher. So when we eat carbohydrates, for example, this happens a little bit with everything we eat, but specifically, so you eat a piece of bread, okay? Eventually that bread gets broken down into little molecules of sugar. I don't mean like table sugar. I mean like chemically, like a little molecule of sugar. Okay. And so that sugar has got to get into your cell for your body to use it as energy. And what the hormone that is like the key that unlocks the door to the cell is called insulin. So we have blood sugar. We have those molecules of sugar. They're in the blood. They've got to get into the cell. Insulin unlocks the door to allow that sugar into the cell. Well, what happens in just naturally with our changes is that we can become more insulin resistant. So what that means is, okay, the key is like sticking in the lock and it's not opening the door as easily as it used to. Well, what happens is that when that happens, like that resistance happens, your body just starts making more insulin. Your body goes, oh, that key's not working. Let me give you another key. Well, the problem is that insulin is a fat storing hormone. So insulin and a lot of the things our body does are protective, are to like, okay, let me save this, energy for later when I might be in famine and starvation, right? But we live in the US, most of us in 2024. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't go without food, that's not purposefully for a while. So again, we have, so our body starts giving us all these extra keys. We have all this extra insulin, and then that insulin is causing us to store the excess sugar. Anything that we're eating, that's extra for our body, so extra sugar is going to get stored as fat. Okay. And that is where the weight gain comes from. I see a ton too in the women that I work with that are busy working professional women, is that their cortisol levels are off and that they've had high cortisol at some point, which has driven up their blood sugar and their insulin. So if you're coming into your 40s, if you were a normal weight before, you can experience this. You can start gaining weight. It's like, I have this 10 pounds that I can't seem to lose. The other caveat is that if you were somebody who was overweight or obese or whatever, I'm just going to use the medical terms, right? If you were overweight or obese prior to perimenopause, and then you enter into perimenopause, let me back up. So if you were overweight or obese before perimenopause, meaning what was likely going on is you had higher than optimal blood sugar and insulin levels that had caused you to gain weight, right? That means your metabolic function is not optimal. Okay. So your body's ability to handle that sugar, make energy is not optimal. So the more problem that we have with that, the more that that's not normal or not optimal before we enter into perimenopause and menopause, that can just be even worse. So you can, that insulin resistance, that high blood sugar can then just be compounded and be even worse when your hormones start shifting in perimenopause. So what do you do about it, right? That's where we've got to really work on our metabolic function. I will, spoiler alert, we actually, in Crown Executive Health, we have a group coaching program that focuses just on this. It's like our kind of entry level. If you don't want to do any testing, you're like, I just want to, fix my metabolism, start losing weight, this actually lays the foundation for hormone balance. The more insulin resistant you have, the worse your hormones are going to be, the worse your menopausal symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms are going to be, fertility issues. If you're younger, you're trying to get pregnant, the foundational, you really got to have your metabolic function, your blood sugar function in good range for optimal health. So if you're hearing that, you're like, oh, I'm interested. I'll actually put the link in the comments below. I'll put the link to book a call with our team, and I'll put the link directly to that program for you. So if you want to join us, hop on in. So again, we've got to fix that metabolic function. So just to recap, we talked about 4 more signs of perimenopause. I'm glad I broke this up because I'm already almost at 20 minutes. So it would have been like a 40 something minute or more episode the last time. So the 4 signs we talked about, we can experience night sweats. We can have an increase. We can have new migraines or an increase in migraines. We can have new or worse PMS, and we can have weight gain, despite doing all the things, right? Exercising, dieting, doing everything you used to, or maybe not changing anything and experiencing weight gain. You used to maintain your weight before and now you're gaining weight. Okay. So those were 4 more signs of perimenopause. So, all right, I'm going to wrap that up here. If you guys loved this episode, I'd love to hear from you. Please, drop comments below. Again, I will put the link. If you're hearing this and you're like, okay, this is me. I want help. I would love for you to book a connection call. So the link will be below in the comments and the show notes, where you can book a connection call with myself or somebody on our team. And then, yes, if you are, so as I talked about at the end, that metabolic function, fixing your blood sugar, if that is speaking to you, if you're like, your biggest struggle has been weight gain, hormonal weight gain, or trouble losing weight, that program is for you. What you can do, again, book a connection call, or we'll put the link directly to the program below so that you can click on that and join. It's actually a 12-month program. And so It's literally, you can't fail because we're going to work with you. We're going to hold your hand the whole way. Let me wrap up this episode. I will see you in the next episode. We're going to continue on with our perimenopause series, talking about what you can do if you're having these symptoms, how to test, what are the treatments. All right. I'll see you in the next episode.